FIV in cats. Lady asked me this morning, wanted to know about FIV in cats and kittens and stuff. So here's the answer from my experience working in vet clinics and having a huge cattery in the desert, and what happened there and what goes on. If it's FIV is transmitted by mostly bites, rarely by sharing food dishes and stuff like that. Male cats that are exposed out, biting and fighting and stuff like that. They're the main suspects. It's less than 3% of the cats in the United States have FIV or test positive, and those are pretty much the outside cats that go in and out and all that stuff. It's about 15% the rest of the world. But I've had a cat, little Chip. He tested positive for FIV. He didn't have FIV when we adopted him out. He tested negative, and but then apparently he escaped and he went all the way up from like near King. He ended up down in Greensboro or Lexington or somewhere, whatever the travels are, either by car or move. He was found on the streets and he tested positive. He's neutered male and microchipped, and so I was going to adopt him out at Durham, and so I got him re-vaccinated and tested, and he tested positive. So since at that time when we had our cattery, I didn't, we certainly wouldn't want to adopt out a pet that was FIV positive, and he came home and lived with me for many years. He ended up getting sick, but he was fine up until then. I mean, he was like 10 years old, 11 years old, and I have other cats, and I have a pretty good environment, and so I don't suggest that to other people, but I wasn't trying to endanger my other cats. There's no reason to euthanize them, and everybody else were fine. They didn't get it. Now in the desert at Save a Pet, when they first started coming up with the FIV vaccine, I had taken over Save a Pet years ago in '94. There was an old barn just full of cats. It was shut down, about 60 cats, and anyway, so I started cleaning all that up, working through the cats, and everything was fine. And there really wasn't any vaccine at the time, FIV or anything like that. That I would say, oh, it doesn't work, doesn't this, doesn't that. So, anyways, I had it all cleaned up, and we were rolling, man. And all of a sudden, these couple of nursing moms with kittens came in, and they were all hunched over. They showed their spine and stuff like that. It was pretty bad. And no matter what we did, we couldn't treat them with doc. We're giving them antibiotics and stuff, and it was just like this mini plague we were having. And so we got them tested, and then I had a test and everything, and they tested positive. So that's what it was. But what they were doing when cats would come up with that, they would, euthanize the cat and send their livers off and do all that stuff. And but we, they were kittens. We didn't want to do that, so we were really struggling. So I started to learn about FIV in cats and the vaccine. It was an intranasal vaccine. They said only it worked this and that, doesn't work all the time, and it only works like whatever, and just all this negative stuff. But we ended up having to euthanize the kittens, but they did see. But even though, okay, say like a pregnant mom, you'll still get the false positives or false negatives. It's really kind of funny there. And when kittens test positive, you're supposed to do it in 6 months, or test them every 60 days until they're 6 months old, to see, because some of them might not have it, but these ones actually did. They were showing signs. They were hunched over. They were in pain. And it was just sad. So anyways, we cleaned that portion up, And it was so sad to see these kittens that sick, and the cats, and it was bad, and so I ordered a bunch through the vet. I had a vet clinic called Maxine Palmer Vet Clinic, and so we had accounts with different suppliers, medical suppliers, and Ocean Medical and different ones that we could get the vaccines from, and so uh, I ordered a bunch of FIV vaccines, and I started vaccinating the intranasal vaccine to all the cats that came in. I'd give them FELV. We'd test them for FELV, FIV. They come up negative. We'd start working through them and get them spayed and neutered and vaccinated. And but the kittens and everybody that I just started vaccinating with the FIV. It was an intranasal at the time, and I never had that problem again. It may only work 50% of the time, but for 100% of the time that I was the director of shelter operations at Save-A-Pet, I never had that problem again. And we would always vaccinate for FELV, FIV, rabies, and all that stuff. And of course, the other one, feline panleukemia, all that stuff, the FELV, a lot of letters for the cat vaccine. I'm old, forgive me. But FERCP with leukemia, the FIV, and everything. We'd make sure that they were all done. And I never had that problem again. Because it was tragic seeing actual young cats with that deficiency in their immune system. It's different. They don't really get it from sex, but it's mostly fighting. They rarely get it from eating and sharing food or bowls. If you have a cat house that doesn't fight, you should be okay. So if your cat, keep them indoors. That's one of the best preventions for FIV or any of the diseases that cats can get. Is indoor cats live 22 years, average, pretty good. And outdoor cats live approximately 9 years. That's their average. They get a lot of stuff out there if they're not fighting with other cats or interacting with wildlife. They're getting ran over by cars, worked animal emergency and trauma for quite a while, and I've seen it all. Cats getting started up in the engine, just horrific things happen. But that's my answer on the FIV. If they test positive, then retest them in another 60 days and keep doing that, because you can get false positives and false negatives. I'm not going to try and sound like a doctor. I just know it worked for me, and they can talk to your vet about the about the immune systems and all that stuff. But you can get false positives and negatives, bottom line. And you just, if you get a false positive, test it again in another 60 days. If you have a cat and bring it in and don't have other cats, they live a wonderful life. They can, with proper care and veterinary exams, annually. If you have a cat that tested positive, do it again in 60 days. You might be surprised. We've done all that, so I've seen it, that one cat one time would test positive, a young cat, and then 60 days, and then all of a sudden it's negative. So, just love your cats, keep them inside, plenty of fresh water, plenty of trips to the vet annually, and, keep them vaccinated, and most of all, microchipped and indoors. Love for all. That's about